Forward-looking statements, of course, as usual. I'm the qualified person as the president of the company. So this is Vision Lithium. My name's Yves Rougerie. I'm the president and the CEO. We have a well-established board and management made up of myself. Victor Cantori is the executive chairman of the company. We have Mr. Bob Bryce, the famous miner from eastern Quebec, who is also a director, along with Scott Jobin-Bevins and Jonathan Gagne. We're here to talk about, we'll look at the capital structure, 240 million shares outstanding, 57 million warrants, when most of them should be picked up early this year at 5 cents. So we have about 300 million shares, fully diluted, market cap about $30 million. We want to talk about our lithium properties here today. We have base metal properties in eastern Canada, but the lithium properties are in Manitoba, and Quebec. Want to talk about the Quebec properties? Sirmac is our main property there in northern Quebec. We're right smack in the middle of what's called the new lithium field. There's 3 major deposits going into production in the next 2 or 3 years: Nemaska Lithium, Critical Elements, and Galaxy Resources. And you can see Corvette property up at the top of the page. That's the Patriot Battery Metal Group, which is very far away. We're just west of the Moblan deposit that belongs to Sayona, which is a 20 million ton deposit probably. In our case, we bought the property from Nemaska Lithium about 4 years ago. They had spent about $2 million on it, and it defined a resource of about 300,000 tons of close to 1.5% lithium in an outcropping dike, which is above ground. And they stripped it, they took all the wood off and prepared it for mining, but then they kind of let go and they sold it to us. We've done about $2 million worth of work as well in the last 3 years and have confirmed the resource as such. And in the last few months, we've been approached by several different companies and entities to buy the ore directly from the project. So the previous presentation, Troilus, is in the same area as us, but we're going to be able to monetize a small 300,000 ton deposit within a period of 1 or 2 or 3 years at a very high rate of return, and that's going to be money in our pockets. Whereas a project like Troilus, as great as it is going to take half a dozen years to get to production, and then maybe as many years just to get their money back from what they invested. So we think we can do something here very exciting that can have a tremendous impact on the stock going forward. We're finishing a PEA right now, and it should be available within a couple of weeks, a preliminary economic assessment. And that should pretty well establish the baseline value of that deposit for the short term. We're located, like I said, just west of the Moblan deposit, so about 150 kilometers from Chibougamau, and we have direct access to roads from the west and the east, so that we can transport the ore out very easily, very directly. So we're talking about doing well, I'll say this first. So we have this property. We have quite a large property, 80 square kilometers, with several known lithium zones on it, and the one we're working right now, the main one, is the number 5 dike with the close to 300,000 ton measured, indicated, and historic inferred resources at close to 1.4%. And you can see there's a road that comes right up to the zone. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do basically a gravel pit type operation where we're going to drill, blast, just truck the ore out. And there are takers locally in Quebec for that, as well as international takers from Europe and from China, and we haven't talked to many other potential buyers as well. So that's a new game in the lithium field, where for many years now there's been a lack of supply, and it's coming to a real crux now, to the point where they're willing to buy the rock directly from the producers without it being made into a concentrate, and they're paying quite a premium for it. So for a small deposit that's not economic on its own, we couldn't build a mill for that deposit, but if we could just sell the ore, it can be highly profitable. So that's what our plan is for 2023. We're in the permitting process now. We expect to have that before summer, and we expect to mine out about 50,000 tons before the end of this year. Just a couple of pictures of the site. You can see the size of this dike and how far above ground we are, as you can see in the distance. So that allows us to have the entire dike above surface, which means we have very little environmental impact. We don't affect the water table. It's already stripped and deforested, so we don't have to make waste piles and all sorts. We have no infrastructure. It's going to cost us $1 or $2 million to get started, and then we're going to mine, hopefully this year, 50,000 tons, which could bring in as much as $50 million, potentially. And our cost to us could be 10 million, as little as 10 million. So the potential profit on a short term is just incredible. And this is an opportunity that did not exist 6 months ago. So the other thing for us is that not many people can do this. We have a property that's been prepped for it in the past, and we have roads that come right to it. We're in an area where there is infrastructure. There's a mining, a forestry camp right next door. So we don't have to put any money out for the infrastructure. We can just profit from it and mine that very quickly at a very high rate of return. So we're very excited about that because we think that should impact the share price quite significantly. So just quickly, that's what this forestry camp looks like. That's what they generally look like. And this is a second zone that we have 5 kilometers away. That's just an indication of the potential of the entire property that has not been explored very much. There's a dozen or so large dikes on the property that have yet to be drilled. And with the profits that we can make off this, we can do that work without diluting the stock by doing financing and basically getting the shareholders an upside on their stock. That's the east zone still. We did do some tests to determine the capability of the material to be taken to the lithium carbonate stage, and we ended up with very high-grade, pure lithium carbonate in the tests. The other property, major one, if I have enough time to talk about it, is the Godslith, which is in northern Manitoba. It's about 250 kilometers east of Lake Winnipeg. That's about 400 kilometers east of Snow Lake and Snow Lake Lithium. And what we have there is a very large dike. There's a First Nation village 5 kilometers away, which has an airstrip, power line, all the services, and a winter road. So we have really good access for exploration. It'll have to be upgraded for any production in the future, but that's a few years down the road. What we have there is a dike that was discovered, or maybe not discovered, but worked by Inco back in the late 50s, early 60s. The dike is almost 2 kilometers long. It's mineralized economically over 1.5 kilometers and down to at least 250 meters. And this is an example of the section where you see the average width is about 11 meters and it runs about 1.4%. On a longitudinal, the deepest hole was at 240 meters, and with all that, they made a resource of close to 10 million tons of a historic resource of almost 10 million tons, a 1.2 diluted. So, but that's only down to 400 feet in most cases and 600 feet in a few areas. So we believe that the 10 million ton can be likely increased to the 15 million ton range, and if we got lucky, possibly even 20. And there's been no exploration around it, so the possibility for other dikes to exist is also good because that's a very common feature of lithium fields. So we have not started working there yet. We're still negotiating an exploration agreement with the First Nation there, but we anticipate and hope that we'll have that by this summer so that we can get on the dike and start sampling it on a more consistent basis. We have another property. It's right next to Val-d'Or. The nice thing about it being next to Val-d'Or is that it's very cost-efficient exploration because we don't have to have a camp. We don't have to drive 500 kilometers to get to it or fly. It's right below Agnico Eagle's major mine and just west of Malartic. And it's a new greenfield property, but which has some dikes with very large crystals. And we're looking forward to advancing that property. We've only had it a year, and we'll be working on it more significantly going forward. Thank you very much.